Welcome back to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where everyday people share the quotes that shaped how they see life, helping you discover fresh perspective for your own journey, one conversation at a time. Today's guest is Rachel Edmondson-Clarke, a leadership expert from Nottingham, who learned her most profound lessons not from success, but from collapsing on her office floor from burnout. She spent 20 years helping others lead powerfully without losing themselves in the process. Let's step into Rachel's world for a few minutes and hear the words that helped her redefine what it really means to thrive. Tell us your name and what you do.
Hey there, Wisdom. So my name is Rachel Edmondson-Clarke. I am the founder of Elevar. We are a leadership development organization where we work with leaders in all kinds of industries from all kinds of backgrounds, but we help them to lead better, live better, and to love what they do.
Okay, thank you for accepting my invitation to be a guest on the podcast, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited and I love what you do.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That means a lot to me right now. My heart's just a lot of, what's the word? Sunshine. Oh, thank you so much. Okay. What's your favorite quote, Rachel?
My favorite quote, and the one that I feel as though I have lived by for many decades, has been, if you're not growing, you're dying or you're dead.
Ooh. If you're not growing, you're dying or you're dead. Okay. It's simple, but I'd love for you to explain it to me. If you could explain it with a story, preferably a personal story, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, well, there's so many for me connected with this because growth is, and learning and development and evolution is something that is, a hugely important value to me in my life, to be experiencing that. But I think the story that is most prevalent and that sticks out really significantly for me is that it hit home early in my career, this quote, and it has stayed with me ever since. And that's that it's not about the hustle or the constant leveling up from a point like that, pushing and that striving, but actually it's about how we can, as a leader, as human beings, how we can evolve in a way that stays very true to our own nature. And I have seen the costs of people who plateau, who don't really grow anymore. And then that, if you think about, even from a point of view of relationships, if your relationship isn't growing, if you aren't improving or constantly looking after yourself, then there are no plateaus in life, really, because ultimately things will just start going down. So we need to be investing in ourselves, in our relationships with others all of the time. And it doesn't have to be something that's big and bold. It can be really small, simple things. But the story, just coming back to that quickly, was this is going back, a decade or more now, and I can remember vividly the afternoon that it happened. I was in my glass-fronted office preparing to go into the boardroom, and instead of walking out that door to go into the boardroom, I found myself lying on the floor, staring up at the ceiling tiles. I'd collapsed. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. And I had completely stagnated and then started to decline in terms of my growth. And that moment for me changed everything.
Before we go about sharing more examples, I'd love for us to look at the word growth, right? It's a simple word. It's something that we think we know, but what does it mean to grow?
Oh, what a beautiful question. So I mentioned before that growth is a value of mine, and values are really just generalizations of experiences that are important to us. And so my definition of growth may be different to your definition of growth, and the way in which I experience growth might be different to yours. So I would love to hear what your view is on this as well. For me, growth is not just about learning, but it's about this constant evolution of who I am, and it's about doing that in a way that feels true to my core nature, if that makes sense, but evolving from that place. And it's not just about the education, it's about the application of that work and that learning and that knowledge. So, and it can feel quite scary sometimes. I often think if we've got a comfort zone that we could describe as the green zone, and then you've got the amber zone, which maybe sits a bit over the green zone, but a bit out of it as well.
Yeah.
And I was thinking it's nice to be in that amber zone, but then there's also sometimes red zones, which are totally not connected to the green zone. It feels way out there in terms of growth. And that can feel really quite scary. And I think the idea of us being in the amber zone as often as we can be, and stretching ourselves, doing things that are new and different and learning new perspectives. I think is that's what growth means to me. But I'd love to hear, what about you? What does it mean to you?
Let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join, or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation. Okay. Growth. First of all, I just want to address what people, the first thought that comes to mind. When people hear growth, the first thing they think about is increase. Increase in the amount of money, increase in the amount of fame, increase in whatever the case might be. But sometimes growth is decrease too. Sometimes it's a change. It doesn't, we've seen examples of when the caterpillar changes from metamorphosis from caterpillar to butterfly. It's different. It's a different organism entirely, but it has grown. It didn't become a taller or bigger caterpillar. No, it became a different butterfly. And I'm not exactly sure, but now I'm looking at it. There is a caterpillar versus a butterfly. Which is bigger or which is heavier? I don't know. I don't have the stats, but I'm thinking the caterpillar is heavier or bigger than the butterfly. Maybe, maybe not. But growth is not always growing. It's not always adding more. Sometimes it's cutting things less and less. Maybe that sometimes it's growth. But it's earlier on you mentioned growth about value and all that. So growth is about how, I think it's the word, becoming better. Yeah.
Absolutely. And yes, and that next version, that evolution of you, the same way the caterpillar is transforming. It's, well,
Yeah.
okay, how is kind of, and I think it's about being able to think, who do I want to become? A little bit again, like the caterpillar and the butterfly. Who do you most want to become? And then moving towards that. And I love what you said about, it's not always about adding more. In fact, sometimes it's about the things we say no to or doing less. So important.
Yeah, and it's a good thing you mentioned though, because this morning, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I said that when we say yes, every time we say yes, we're saying a bold no to something else. So we want to always be careful that the things we are saying no to is not much more important than the things we're saying yes to. I'll give an example. If I decide to say, okay, let me scroll through TikTok or watch a documentary video, right now, that's we scheduled for this interview. I could do that, right? And not show up for the interview. Well, the question I need to ask myself is, and now I've said no to this interview, but I've said yes to watching a 1 hour documentary in the space of this time. Or right now I've said yes to this interview. There's so many other things I've said no to.
Yeah.
But it doesn't come up in economics, they call it the opportunity cost, right? For everything you buy, there are things that you could also have used that time to buy.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that I would talk regularly with my clients about. And it's it is, as you say, the opportunity cost. And sometimes we need to, I think, allow space for new things and new opportunities to be able to come in, because otherwise it can be very difficult to see or even respond to them if we've said yes to everything else. So sometimes there might not even be an obvious, oh, this is going to come into this space. But when we create that space, then things can come in when there is that space created. But sometimes you have to create the space first.
Yeah. The second part of the quote is, if you're not growing, you're dying, right? What does it mean to die? Now, of course, we all know what it means to die physically, right? But I know in this context, we're not talking about a physical death. What does it mean to die if we're not growing?
And I suppose for me with this quote, that I often look out to nature with this, and I think, well, I look in my garden and I think, well, if these plants aren't growing, then are they dying back? Is there the opportunity, like the phoenix, to rise again the next year from those? And
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. I think there are times within our own personal, because this is, for me, it's not about monetary growth. It's about personal growth. And there are times when we have to let old parts of us die and to really allow the new version and the new shoots to be able to come through. And I guess it's just that, well, how do we, for me, it's like, it's this reminder that if we're not growing, then, and there are no plateaus in life, because you don't stand still for that long before things start to decline. I think that's what I was trying to say earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you just want to be on the lookout for that.
Yeah. Now, when you mentioned that there are no plateaus, right? I think that it's two scenarios, right? There is the scenario where you think like it's a plateau, but you're actually in the context of this conversation dying, right? And then there's the other scenario where you think you hit a plateau, but what you're actually doing is you're building capacity. There's so many crops in nature that they spend a lot of years. They don't even grow. They don't, like, quote unquote, grow. You don't even see any physical sign of growth, but yet they're building their root system. They're building capacity. And then in a couple of months, when it's time, eventually they just shoot up and you're like, wow, this stuff is overnight. What's happening? How are they going so fast? But it took them several years to actually build the capacity and systems around that. An example of such plants, I think it's the bamboo. I can't remember the exact species of bamboo, but it spends a ton of years. It's there. It doesn't come out or shoot out. But when it does grow, it grows super fast.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, Rachel.
Oh, no, thank you, Wisdom. It has been an absolute pleasure to be speaking with you today.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, the thing that makes me sad is that we just didn't get to chat for for a longer amount of time.
Oh, well, this is a great format. And for people who don't have a lot of time, it's just getting those nuggets, and getting those bits of wisdom in.
Yeah, no pun intended. Okay, where can my listeners learn more about you and what you do?
The best place is to either connect with me on LinkedIn or through my website. You can find all the details at Elevar, that's ELLEVAR.co.uk.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been an absolute delight chatting to you.
It's been a pleasure, Wisdom. Thank you.
Yeah. Uh, you've been listening to Relatable Wisdom, and I've been your host, Wisdom Okonkwo. You've been listening to the podcast where every story, quote, and insight helps you see life a little differently. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow the show on your favorite podcast app and share it with someone who loved the conversation. For more inspiring voices and timeless wisdom, visit relatablewisdom.com. Until next time, keep living, learning, and collecting wisdom that matters most to you.